The elevator doors closed with a quiet sound, and Margaret Lawson felt her heart skip. As if she had stepped into a moment she did not fully understand. It was only a hotel ride, only one night away from home, but something about it felt like the edge of a change she had not planned. At 65, Margaret believed surprises belonged to younger people. She was a widow from Ohio, steady and careful, known for calm smiles and kind manners. Her husband Daniel had been gone for 3 years, and since then her days followed a safe rhythm. Morning tea, a short walk, old books, long evenings where the house felt too quiet. This trip was not her idea. Her daughter Emily had called in a rush. A work emergency in Canada, a missed connection. One night needed. Margaret had agreed before fear could speak. So here she was, standing in a downtown hotel in Cleveland with her 10-year-old grandson Noah, holding a small overnight bag and pretending she was not nervous. "Grandma, this place is huge," Noah said, eyes bright as he looked at the shining floor and tall lights. Margaret smiled. "Just don't run," she said, though part of her wanted to do the same. They reached their room, neat and warm, with city lights glowing beyond the window. Noah dropped his bag and turned on the television, already at ease. Margaret stood still for a moment, listening to the sound of life outside, cars' voices, distant laughter. It had been a long time since she slept anywhere but her own bed. That evening passed quickly. Pizza from room service. A movie Noah chose. Laughter she did not expect from herself. When Noah finally fell asleep, curled under the white hotel blanket, Margaret felt a strange pull toward the window. She opened the curtain. The city stretched below, alive and awake. She placed her hand on the glass, feeling the cold through her palm. For years, she had watched life from a distance. Tonight, it was right there, breathing. She did not know why her chest felt tight. Unable to sleep, Margaret slipped on her sweater and left the room quietly. She told herself she only wanted tea. Nothing more. The hotel cafe was calm, filled with soft light and low music. A few guests sat alone, each lost in their own thoughts. Margaret chose a small table near the wall and ordered chamomile tea. She folded her hands and waited. That was when a voice broke the quiet. "Excuse me, may I sit here?" She looked up, surprised. The man standing there was around her age, tall but gentle in posture, with silver hair and kind eyes. He held a book against his chest like a shield. "Yes," she said, after a pause. "Of course." He thanked her and sat down, leaving a respectful space between them. "My name is Thomas," he said. "Thomas Reed." "Margaret," she replied. "Margaret Lawson." They smiled, polite at first. Careful, Thomas explained he was visiting his sister for a few days. Margaret mentioned she was there with her grandson. Simple words. Safe topics. But something felt easy. They talked about books, about quiet towns, about how hotels felt both empty and full at the same time. Margaret found herself speaking more than she expected, laughing once or twice softly as if afraid the sound might vanish. "I haven't talked this much to a stranger in a long time," Thomas said, not looking at her. "Neither have I," Margaret admitted. There was no rush. No questions that crossed a line. Just shared space and time. When the cafe began to close, Thomas stood. "It was nice meeting you," he said. "Truly," she nodded. "It was." Back in her room, Margaret lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Noah breathed softly in the other bed. Her mind replayed the evening, not in detail, but in feeling. The warmth, the sense of being seen. She pressed her hand to her chest and whispered, "Calm down." Morning came faster than she expected. Noah woke early, full of energy and questions. "Grandma, can we eat downstairs again?" She smiled. "Yes. Pancakes." They dressed and rode the elevator down. Margaret felt different, lighter, yet unsure why. At breakfast, she watched Noah talk and eat, grateful for his presence, for the reason he had brought her here. Then she noticed Thomas. He stood near the coffee station, scanning the room. When he saw her, his face softened. He did not wave. He simply smiled. Later, when Noah went to wash his hands, Thomas approached their table. "I didn't want to interrupt," he said quietly. "I just wanted to say hello." "That's all right," Margaret replied. They spoke briefly. About plans for the day. About travel. Nothing deep. Nothing risky. But when he said, "Talking with you last night reminded me I'm still part of the world," Margaret felt her throat tighten. "I felt that too," she said. He reached into his pocket and placed a small card on the table. "My number," he said. "Only if you'd like to talk again someday." She nodded and slipped the card into her purse. When Thomas left, Margaret sat still for a long moment. Noah returned, cheerful and unaware. She smiled for him, but her thoughts moved fast. Later that day, when Noah was picked up and the room felt too quiet, Margaret sat alone on the bed. The city light faded into evening once more. She held the card in her hand. She thought of Daniel, of the years they had shared, of love that had been full and real. Then she thought of herself, of time still ahead. Margaret did not know what the next step would be. She only knew that something inside her had opened and it would not close again. The night outside glowed softly, and for the first time in years, Margaret did not feel alone. The morning sun spilled across the hotel room, painting the walls gold. And Margaret Lawson felt a nervous excitement she hadn't felt in years. One night, one simple hotel stay with her grandson had already turned into something unexpected. She looked at Noah, who was still half asleep, his small hand clutching his blanket, and smiled. Life, she realized, had a way of surprising you when you least expected it. Noah's cheerful voice broke through the quiet. "Grandma, can we go get pancakes now?" he asked, eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Margaret chuckled, smoothing his hair back gently. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's go." She moved quickly, tying her shoes and gathering their bags, eager to start the day. Yet her heart skipped in anticipation of seeing Thomas again. Down in the hotel restaurant, the morning buzzed with low chatter and the aroma of fresh coffee. Margaret led Noah to a table near the window where sunlight streamed in, lighting up his small face and her own reflection. Noah's excitement was contagious, and Margaret laughed freely as he pointed out every little thing that caught his eye: the waiter's shiny tray, the coffee machine hissing softly, the birds outside flitting between trees. For a moment, it was just the two of them, a perfect bubble of normalcy. Then she saw him, Thomas Reed, standing near the coffee station, scanning the room, calm and poised. Their eyes met, and Margaret felt a flutter she had not felt in decades. He smiled, not loudly, but in that quiet, certain way that seemed to say, "I see you, and I remember last night." He made his way toward their table while Noah was distracted, talking to a server about syrup. Margaret's pulse quickened. She reminded herself to stay composed. Yet the memory of their conversation from the night before tugged at her chest. Thomas pulled out a chair, not too close, just respectful enough to make her notice. "Good morning," he said gently. "I hope I'm not intruding." "No, not at all," Margaret replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "We were just about to have breakfast." She gestured to Noah, who waved and smiled, already absorbed in his pancakes. Thomas's eyes softened as he glanced at Noah. "He's a lively one," said, a trace of amusement in his tone. "Reminds me of my own grandson." Margaret felt warmth spread in her chest. She realized she hadn't expected kindness like this in a stranger, and yet here it was, simple, steady, and unexpected. They talked about everyday things: at first pancakes, hotel stays, the weather, but beneath it was a rhythm, a gentle understanding growing between them. Margaret found herself leaning in slightly, laughing freely, sharing small stories about her late husband, and even the little quirks of Noah that made her smile every day. When Noah excused himself to the restroom, Thomas leaned closer, voice soft. "Margaret," he said, "I wanted to say thank you. Last night, talking to you, it reminded me that I'm still alive in a world that often feels too quiet." Margaret felt her throat tighten. She nodded, unable to speak immediately. I felt the same," she admitted finally. Her heart swelled with emotions she had long buried. The fear of moving on, of feeling joy again. was melting slowly under his calm presence. They spoke quietly, exchanging moments of honesty they hadn't anticipated. Thomas shared stories of his life, of love lost and lessons learned. Margaret responded in kind, telling him small memories of her marriage with Daniel, memories that still made her smile and ache at the same time. There was no rush, no expectation, just the quiet discovery that two hearts, once heavy with solitude, could recognize something familiar and comforting in each other. Before he left, Thomas placed a small card on the table. Margaret's fingers brushed it, tentative, reverent. "My number," he said simply. "Only if you'd like to talk again." Margaret held the card as he walked away, a strange mix of nerves and hope buzzing inside her. She watched Noah return, oblivious to the quiet shift happening in her heart. The room felt suddenly too small for all the feelings she was experiencing. The rest of the day passed quickly. Noah's energy was endless, keeping Margaret moving and distracted just enough to keep her from dwelling too much on Thomas's words. They walked through the city park, stopping to feed birds, laughing when Noah tripped over a small stone and pausing to admire a fountain. Margaret felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. Her heart, long dormant, throbbed gently with the thrill of new possibility. Back at the hotel in the late afternoon, after Noah had been picked up by his mother, Margaret sat alone in the quiet room. The walls, once bland and neutral, now felt like a space charged with meaning. She unfolded the card Thomas had given her, staring at the numbers, and realized something profound. Love, life, and joy didn't end with loss. They shifted, waiting for the right moment to reappear. Margaret thought of Daniel not with pain, but with gratitude. She remembered their years together, the love they shared, and understood now that moving forward didn't erase the past. It honored it. The room was quiet, the city humming softly outside the window. For the first time in years, Margaret felt the pulse of life returning, gentle but unstoppable. She sent a short message on her phone, trembling slightly. "This is Margaret. I'd like that conversation." The reply came almost instantly. "I was hoping." Margaret leaned back against the pillows, a tear escaping down her cheek. It wasn't sadness, it was release. It was hope. A reminder that life had not ended, that joy could still arrive in the quietest, most unexpected ways. As the sun set over the city, Margaret realized that her night at the hotel, meant only to care for her grandson, had turned into something much more. It had reminded her that she was still here, still capable of feeling deeply, still deserving of connection. And sometimes it only takes one unexpected meeting, one gentle conversation, and a small card in your hand to remind you that life has more chapters waiting to be written. Margaret Lawson closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The hotel room was quiet, but her heart was wide awake. She was ready to live again, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that hope, like love, could return in the most surprising of places. That single hotel stay, meant to be simple, had changed her forever. And for the first time in years, Margaret allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a new beginning.